Red October is back, and so is
It's time for Justice for All, Behind the Badge video. Streamed live from Team Toyota Route 1 in Langhorne with your host, Tom Mellon. Featuring Bucks County District Attorney Matt Weintraub and Bucks County Sheriff Fred Herron. Here's your host from Team Toyota, Tom Mellon.
Good morning, right here from WBCB's little home place where we do Justice for All. We do Behind the Badge with Fred Herron, and Let's Go Places. My sidekick, Charlie Esposito, and our very good friend and our co-host, Jennifer Schorn, who is the first assistant district attorney. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful day in October. It really is. I want to thank Paul Muller, obviously our major sponsor, who's been doing this show. And I'm over here in the corner now. Charlie's in the center, and we have
We're moving you further and further away.
moving me further and further away. So, at any rate, I'm still here, live and in person. But once again, a beautiful day in October. You just can't beat this autumn. The leaves are changing, the foliage. My wife, Jerry's always saying, look at the leaves, they're changing. It's her favorite time of the year. But Paul Muller, thank you again for recognizing the importance of these shows on WBCB 1490, and you can also listen on our FM station now, 107.3 on the dial as well. We have a lot of exciting things that are going to be coming up that Jennifer, you're going to be a part of, we hope. We're going to be doing, possibly some podcasts in the future and some other shows that have some significance. But that's for later on to talk about. Today, we're here with Jennifer, and each and every time we have Jennifer here, it's a treat for you, our listenership, because she has a lot of good stories, actual true stories. So here in this county of Bucks, you can feel a little bit safer. If somebody plans to come up into the neighborhoods in Bucks County and you want to commit a crime, you will be tracked down and you'll be caught, and you will be prosecuted. There's a zero tolerance for all crimes, right, Jen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's talk in the beginning about something that just recently occurred with one of the cold case murders that you were talking about, Joy Hibbs.
Joy Hibbs.
Mm-hmm. And arson. It's just a shame what happened, but that was back in 1991 when that occurred.
Yeah, so I'm prosecuting along with my colleague Kristen McElroy and Detective Dave Hanks, and you'll hear his name because I'm going to mention him in another case.
Great.
As well as Mike Slaughter from Bristol Township. This was a 1991 murder of a 35-year-old woman who, in the beautiful little home, husband was at work. Both kids were at school. Her son David was 12 at the time, and her daughter Angie was 16.
During the day?
During the day. She worked at a medical office for a local physician, and so was home in the morning taking care of the family puppy. And her son got home. This is probably the most heart-wrenching part. Her son got home early from having received his report card, and it was early dismissal, and he had high honors, running up the driveway to tell his mom.
So excited.
And he's a self-proclaimed mama's boy, he said, and comes around the back of the house, which the family used the back entrance, like the saying, close friends and family, there's a certain entrance where, so they always use the back. Opens up the back door and sees flames and smoke, and his little puppy comes running out.
Oh my God.
And his mother, he knew was home because he saw her car in the driveway, and he tried to get in and tried to, he was screaming for help, and neighbors ended up having to restrain him because he tried to get to his mom.
Sure.
And ultimately, obviously the police responded, firefighters, they worked hard to put out the fire. Her poor husband, this is pre-cell phones, so they had to locate him at a job site in Philadelphia, and he had to be told that your house is on fire.
Oh,
and
God.
At that point, when he came home, he didn't realize that his wife was home because she should have been at work. And I'll explain why. And then equally as heart-wrenching, friends of Joy's daughter, Angie, saw the house on fire and knew Angie was at school. They got in their car. They went to Catholic school, so they were off. They got in their car and drove to get her and tried to plead with school officials to let her out because her house was on fire. And the school officials initially weren't going to, and then they heard it on the radio that it was, so they let her out. All of the family converges to find that that Joy had passed in the fire, so they thought. 24 hours later, it was determined not only that it was an arson, but that Joy was stabbed and strangled before the house was set on fire. And her body was drug into David's bedroom. And, you know, one of the things, like David now, you know, adult, close to my age, and Angie, and they're lovely, lovely human beings, and Charlie, Joy's husband, just remarkable. Turns out that for that first 24 hours, because Joy was found dead in David's bedroom, and he had all kinds of aquariums and computer cords and whatnot, he thought he was responsible for his mom's death because of like the wiring. And so for 24 hours, he thought a fire started in his room that took his mom's life.
Self-guilt that occurs.
Yeah. And then it's like, you know, a strange, like you find out then she's murdered, so you know you're not the reason, even though no child would be the cause of that if, God forbid, there was an inadvertent fire. But turns out she was strangled and asphyxiated. And it was a neighbor and someone they had a relatively minor dispute with, but he had horrible rage and anger issues, and over this dispute, and also we believe there was a sexual component. He broke into the home. He murdered, stabbed, asphyxiated, and then set the house on fire and took all of Joy's money from her purse. The purse was scattered throughout, and the family lost everything. They lost, and you know, it's a pending prosecution, so I have to be careful what I talk about.
Of course.
But you know, one of the things, like when you go through these prosecutions, you think of, you know, the case and what you need to do and what you need to prove, and you don't stop thinking of the family. That's what motivates you to make sure there's justice, as we know, for all, which is the name of this show.
Yes.
And you think, you know, when I'm asking them for images so I could share with the grand jury when we put the case in grand jury, videos and images, family videos, they had so few because they lost everything in the fire. God. So not only did they lose their loved one, but this is not the digital age where things were backed up. And so the few they had to go around after losing their mom, Charlie losing his wife, asking every family, do you have any images of Joy? Do you have any family videos that we ever shared with you? And so you realize like the ripple effect of loss that continues throughout the generations.
How traumatic.
Yeah, but it was outstanding work. We had Bristol Township asked for assistance. Dave Hanks, who's like just my colleague who works in the county detective's office.
Sure.
I think he has 90% of the murders these days. He's wonderful at what he does. And I was assigned, and we put it into our grand jury. We did some really cool things, and the case is now got presented in the grand jury, which means recommendation to charge. We learned additional evidence after charging when we were able to go public.
Of course. We
gathered more leads, and now he awaits trial. This Robert Atkins is standing trial for first-degree murder, arson, all of the related offenses, and it actually is a death penalty trial.
Good. Mm-hmm. You know, that's one way of putting people to rest, pardon the pun, with these types of heinous crimes.
There's certain ones, there's murders and there's murders. I mean, all murders obviously are very, very serious, but there are certain ones that, you know, fit what it's enumerated in the law.
Yep, exactly.
And you just know, you know, the mechanism used, the torture, the tragedy, the, you know, victimization, so long as it fits in the elements, that's then certified as a capital case. So that's where this one stands. So I'm proud of the work we do in Bucks County, that we don't forget about these cases.
No, these are cases that the unsolved occurrences, they aren't forgotten.
No.
And you have to realize that we have investigators with the earnest and sincerity to continue to pursue and scrape the surface, dig under the surface, and find a way to find the culprit and then prosecute and then put them behind bars or put them to rest where they belong.
It's amazing how a small argument can escalate into such rage.
Yeah.
You know, if you listen to some of the cases and all, it always starts out as a small, you know, There was one, the guy was feeding the deer and his neighbor didn't. I mean, little things just.
Trivial matters. Yeah.
Just blows up.
It can, for certain. This one, you know, we think that it was a little more to that, but you're so right that we see it time and time again. You see the road rage. You see the,
road
you know,
rage is
just.
good.
In fact, I would be remiss in not mentioning something. My colleague, Chris Reese, just had a first-degree murder verdict on Friday night come through on a case that he prosecuted with two representatives from Pennsylvania State Police, Lieutenant Brandon Corby and Detective Mike Gesualdo, and Dave Hanks, our county detective.
Hanks, sure.
And
Good old Hanks.
I want to good old Hanks. I want to mention that because this was a case where there was a gang component from Trenton that came into Bucks to party in Bucks County, murdered a friend of theirs, dumped the body on I-95, and that was a fatal mistake because that body was dumped in Bucks County. That murder happened in Bucks County, and we in Bucks County make sure to follow up every lead, and it went cold for a little bit. But they were tireless in what they did to bring the case, to prove the case, to identify the perpetrator, to gather cooperation from fellow gang members, and they just got a first-degree murder verdict on Friday night. So just
wonderful.
Your intro into this show made me realize, you know, that's another case worth mentioning. Like
the up-and-coming verdicts that we know we're going to be in our favor.
Yes, exactly, and just the hard work. Like it's easier to say, you know, there's doubt. I don't know that there's enough to charge, but to dig down and make sure you can find the evidence to support the case and support a conviction is what we do best.
And that's what's great. And road rage, as you pointed out, I'm always telling my friends, family, my wife,
let it go.
Let it go. It's whatever they're doing, whatever someone else behind the wheel in their vehicle is doing that provokes or aggravates you. I get aggravated. Everybody gets aggravated if people aren't paying attention, if they're texting and not focusing. Sure. But don't hammer the horn. Don't use one of the fingers in your hand and even if they do that to you, just keep driving. What's the point?
It's a lesson. It's a hard-learned lesson.
It
because
is.
Especially if you're not the aggressor and you're respectful to others and you feel so affronted. It is hard, but you have to tell yourself every day, it is not worth engaging. We had a case recently where two people ended up engaging in a high-speed chase. Both lost control and flipped their cars, and this is in the upper end of Bucks County, and struck a house. And one individual suffered he severed a spinal column.
Oh my God!
So it's just not. It is truly something you need to. I tell my teen driver that every day.
Please,
just do not engage. It's
Don't
hard.
Engage.
It's
it
hard.
is difficult. It really is. But it's necessary.
Yeah.
There's too many road rage occurrences out there
There are.
that lead to crime.
Yeah, we have a pending homicide. That is that exact issue.
Pending homicide.
That it started with the road rage.
Yeah, with a road rage. So, folks, when you're out there driving, understand that there are other people out there that just aren't. If they're not focused, shame on them. But let them go. If you want to give them a little toot and just look and say, be careful, something like that, I don't see anything wrong with a gesture like that. If somebody, that's happened to me, somebody tooting the horn and they're like looking at me like this, I'm sorry. That's all.
Right.
Sorry. And, then you become more focused yourself. So communicate with the other people. If there's ignorance out there, help them calm the storm a little bit. Because road rage, as Jennifer points out, leads to superficial crimes. And, it's something that shouldn't happen. Even
if you're not impaired and you're engaging in a high-speed, antagonistic kind of encounter on the road, that could be, that reckless component could result in a homicide by vehicle charge.
Someone else. Yeah.
Someone else. So it's just, it is a hard lesson, trust me when I say, especially if you have a long commute and you're on the road a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard. There are some rude individuals
Oh my
out
God,
there.
they really are. They're tough. We're going to pause for a station identification and obviously praise our sponsors such as Paul Muller. You're listening to Justice for All with our first Assistant District Attorney here in Bucks County, Jennifer Schorn, and we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having
as
me.
Always, a regular now on WBCB. This show hopefully will, increase its height of importance and enthusiasm with our listenership, so that we can continue to convey a lot of important information and stuff that that the listeners otherwise wouldn't know about.
Right.
So it's a great show, and it's as Bree, our engineer, will say, you can watch this anytime because it's streamed now on YouTube, right? You can go to YouTube and just put in WBCB, Tom Mellon, Jennifer Schorn. It's just great to be able to casually pick up some of these, hourly shows and listen in because it really is great. We'll return after a few moments from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere on WBCB 1490 and 107.3 on the FM dial.
Red October is back, and so is our new Toyota inventory, with in-demand popular models arriving monthly, like the all-new Grand Highlander and Sequoia, or reliable classics like the RAV4 and Camry. And with no markups above MSRP in our Teammate Rewards program, you can see for yourself why our home team advantage is so important. Shop online at teamtoyota.net or visit one of our 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton.
Are you a parrot head?
Wasted away again in Margarita.
Not that kind.
Oi Dana, mother to Papuga.
That's more like it. If you're this kind of parrot head, don't forget to check out the Denny O Polka Show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon right here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
Hey, we're back here with Justice for All. Bree, our engineer here at the desk, Charlie Esposito. He's our retired police, fire, and correctional officers president of that board. I'm honored to be on it as well. And our star here, Jennifer Schorn, our first assistant district attorney in Bucks County. This morning, I was up early, and my wife took care of the dog, obviously, and the bird chirping in the background, typical Bucks County music. And I was getting ready to head out. I went over to the Ben Salem Country Club. Jen, it's beautiful over there. It really is. It's nice. And all of our Bucks County chiefs, they have their annual golf outing. So Team Toyota, we display a vehicle. And not that we have too many vehicles, but we display a vehicle there so that if someone happens to get a hole-in-one, they get a free lease for 2 years.
Wow.
It's nice.
I did not realize that was one of the prizes.
It's
That's
pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Freddie Harron was there.
Wonderful.
Chief Bill McVeigh. All the chiefs were there. Great time.
Impressive group, right? When they're all together in one place.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked me, who's taking care of the crime in Bucks County? I said, that's why they have assistant chiefs. That's why they have detectives. They have other people out there that are and they're always in complete communication. Yeah. All the chiefs.
Absolutely.
With their districts and everything. But yeah, it's a nice day for it. The good Lord above gave us good weather.
The last few golf tournaments, we worried about rain every time we had one.
That's the problem.
Yeah. They have a great day for golfing.
Beautiful today.
Great.
And Tom and I are retired police officers, so we were at the top of the ladder, and we love. We were at the bottom of that, and we love when one of these convictions come.
Oh my God! Absolutely.
Everybody does their part. Sometimes it is the responding officer who's the key component to the break in the case, or in this day and age, just the ability to monitor all of the different surveillance that we have. I won't get into details.
True.
I want to show too much of what
that's true though.
Tricks of the trade, but it's everybody doing their part, between the first responding officers through the veteran detectives and the chiefs that allow the resources to be utilized and from soup to nuts.
Yeah, from soup to nuts.
Yeah.
So getting back, before we get into our major agenda for today, as far as this arson case, it's on its way, and
it's on its
hopefully more details will follow where we can cover and and convey the outcome of it. We can't say too much.
Right, just because it's pending. But
because it's pending right now.
Yeah, but I look forward to an update, hopefully in early 2024. We have a January trial date, so, it's been a long time for this family, and they're just remarkable. They're remarkable people, and you have to imagine that, the roller coaster they were on with losing faith that this would, that justice would ever come. And so it's really been a privilege to... 32 years.
It's
heart-wrenching. I mean, 35-year-old woman, mother of 2, and her husband had to wait this long for justice. But, we will absolutely...
How is he doing today? Do you know?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
They're really,
and the children?
They're remarkable people. 2 moved out of the area, 1 lives local. But for what they went through, and keep in mind, for a period of time, naturally, initially, in the initial phase, you look towards the spouse to see, and it was clear as day, Charlie loved his wife, right, and was so devoted to his family, but also he was on a job site.
He was distance away from
Yeah, he was on a job site. Yeah, it's just hard, though. That's always...
Everybody looks at the husband first, or the wife.
Or the wife, yeah.
Right. Right,
and
exactly.
So there's all these collateral consequences that families go through.
Yeah.
When their victims of crime. And like I said, even just that little, point about the videos, that pulled at my heartstrings, because, we all are blessed. When I got here, you were showing family pictures, and we're blessed by having the digital age of saving our memories. But when you go back to 91, your photos were it. And maybe if you were lucky, you had some...
videos.
Yeah, videos and
or whatever.
Yeah. Your,
they could have been destroyed
camera
too.
rolls.
In a camera.
Oh, they were. They were all destroyed. I mean, that house was burnt to next to nothing. Yeah.
1991. Yeah, that's a different era when it comes to technology and everything today.
Yeah, right.
Incredible. Well, we have a main topic to talk about today, and it's a continuance from our last show. Heinous people that are out there and crimes that are committed. And obviously the topic being, as with our last show, sexual predators that are out there. They come from all walks of life.
Yeah.
They cannot be identified easily. A lot of times it's very deceiving. And it could be the guy next door, or it could be the person, and not just a guy, but it could be a female. That probably not as often that you see that happen.
But occasionally you do.
Yeah, occasionally you'll see that occur. But it's something that we, on this program, feel that you deserve to know, and you need to know some of the outward signs that maybe possibly you could look for, because they're shrewd characters, these sexual predators.
Well said, Tom. That's exactly it. We talk about the grooming that happens to victims, but the sexual predators don't just groom the victims. They groom the families.
Oh, yeah.
They groom society, the community. Trust. They build trust. And so I always say this, when I'm presenting the D's Association on Child Abuse and trying to convey to younger prosecutors prosecuting these cases the message that you want to convey to a jury. If you had a child walking down the street and a stranger came up to that child and said, get in the car, and threaten them, there's likely to be an outcry. There's likely to be a scream, a kick, and it's going to draw attention.
Exactly.
And it's very, very, very rare that actually happens, because it's not smart for a child predator to do that, because the second they do that, everybody is going to be on alert and pursuing that car with that predator. So what they do is far more calculated, far more thoughtful in a devious way. They get close. They first gain that trust. They gain the family's trust. They gain the child's trust, so that they can blur the lines. It would be apparent to that child, this person coming up to me, this stranger, demanding I get in the car, is bad. It would be obvious, and what he's trying to do is bad. So that's why it would provoke that outcry, that response. But if you come up and you're friendly and that's the guy who's been talking to mom and dad in the neighborhood, when we're out raking the leaves. Oh, yeah, he's just a neighbor. Oh, you know what? In fact, last time he said, I have some lollipops. Do you want a lollipop? In front of mom and dad. And they said, sure, you can have one.
Sure.
Suddenly those lines get blurred. And suddenly, okay, he's not so bad.
Right.
And then as they get closer, even the lines of, the sexual violation gets blurred, because the child is too young to understand. They used to, when I was a kid, it was stranger danger. Yes, that is still the case.
Yes.
But and actually in our community, they would put a red hand in the window. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a movement where you would have a picture of a red hand in your residential window, your home, and that meant you were a safe house for a child to go to if anything were to happen.
I remember that. Yeah.
I think of that now and think that's the worst idea on the face of the earth.
Anybody can get a red hand.
Yeah. Who's getting those? The predators are getting the red hands.
Sure they were.
Say, oh, look, I'm safe. And that implies some sort of vetting. And that's how backwards we used to be.
Yes.
Because we didn't understand and we didn't prepare our kids to understand.
Yes.
That's not how it happens. That's not where the lines get blurred. It is oftentimes someone who looks like they're helping out, and it looks like, my kids play sports, and it's such a part of our personal life, and 99% of the people involved in youth groups and sports and activities are good people.
You're right.
It's that 1%.
That 1% that infiltrate that organization because they know it's a easy way to legitimize the access.
God,
and
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
So, we see this in the predators is more often than not, they look and they identify what's going on in a family's life. Maybe the family's going through some financial trouble. Maybe there's a divorce and, the child's going back and forth between mom and dad, and there's like transition. So it's not clear as to, who has eyes on the kids at all time.
Yes.
Maybe there's a single parent. Maybe there's a parent who has substance abuse issues, and not to judge that parent or say that they're at fault. But the predators are so good at looking at the vulnerabilities and then figuring out how they're going to exploit. So they'll go in, in a neighborhood or in a community or in an organization, and they won't touch certain victims because the risk is too high. It's a risk calculus. But other ones that they say, this child seems a little low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? My parents are fighting, or my mom and dad, my dad moved out. And again, not faulting the parents. That happens.
It happens.
And that's a reality too many people have to face. But the predators know to then get close and act like a support system and a shoulder to cry on. And, we've seen far too many cases where that's kind of their in to then victimize a child.
It's the planning that they put behind reaching their victim.
Yes.
They sit back and watch and analyze and look at everything.
Even within a family, Tom, you're so right.
You're right.
They'll identify, there might be 3 children, and trust me, there are some sex offenders that are indiscriminate to gender. Some have preferences to gender, but boys and girls are equally vulnerable. But they, even within a family, if they see one child in the family is a little more outspoken, a little more confident, they'll move away from that child. They'll hone in on the child who seems to be, a little more in need of attention, shy, introverted. And so it's scary.
It is.
Just
it's frightening.
How calculated they are.
Yes. And then that when that trust is built by the child, then they're, in a lot of cases, they're not going to say anything. That's the worst part.
That's the worst part. That's their insurance policy because they are
Trust.
so conflicted. The trust, they feel the weight of, he's been good to me. Like he got me, he got me things that I never thought I'll reference 2 cases, but, this one notorious sex offender, the worst I've ever seen in my career, 15 victims, child victims, male and female, 4 to 16 years of age. He would have the monster truck. He had the ATVs. He had the jet skis. He had everything. And he was a good-looking, muscle-bound, looked like a normal guy's guy.
Sure.
Not your creepy-looking.
Deceiving characteristics. They are, Jen. They really are. We're going to pause for another break, but let's flow right back into this.
Perfect.
This dark, I call it a dark trust, because it is very dark and dismal that a child will develop for a person, especially if there's if there's some problems that are occurring with the parents, with whoever it may be in the family, and everything is distracted, and he has a clear focus in that dark trust that victim has. We're going to talk to you more about that when we return on WBCB, Justice for All with Jennifer Schorn and our Bucks County First Assistant District Attorney, Charlie Esposito. Bree on the at the helm there. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to share with you. We have some nice cases to talk about. We'll return after a few moments.
Red October is back, and so is our new Toyota inventory, with in-demand popular models arriving monthly, like the all-new Grand Highlander and Sequoia. or reliable classics like the RAV4 and Camry. And with no markups above MSRP in our Teammate Rewards program, you can see for yourself why our home team advantage is so important. Shop online at teamtoyota.net or visit one of our 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton.
Opinions matter, and so does yours. Hi, I'm Joe Fabrizi, inviting you to join us every Monday at 1 p.m. for Opinions Matter, right here on 1490 AM WBCB. Opinions Matter is now live streamed at WBCB1490.com. We want to hear from you because your opinion does matter.
Are you curious what old antiques, collectibles, or household contents are worth? Listen Friday mornings for What's It Worth with Mike the Appraiser, right here on 1490 WBCB.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
We're back here behind the badge. At 746 East Lincoln Highway, the beautiful new showroom, new car showroom. Not new showroom, it's been here for many years, but it's vast. It's just as big upstairs, but downstairs on the showroom we still have some nice vehicles. Pardon me while I clear my throat there. We have a Heroes program here, Jen, as you know. Charlie, as Charlie knows. I'll speak about real briefly. I'm proud to say that I've been running it now for almost 15 years. Paul Muller, the sponsor of it, he recognized the importance of it, that all of our police, fire, military, and medical, along with their family members, deserves a special look and some special treatment and charitable contributions with this program, where you come in, you see me, a retired police officer. I'm very proud to sit and listen. I've never sold one car. People say, stop it. You've never sold one car. But really, I just help people buy what they're looking for, buy what they need. And I deal with these folks, members I call them, of the Heroes program. 215-768-6505. That comes directly to me, police, fire, military, medical, and family members, so that I can help you find what your vehicle interest is. And sometimes it's like immediate. If you're in an accident, car's totaled. I just helped one of our firefighters, who fortunately he turned out okay, and the wife turned out okay. They were T-boned. Car was totaled, and they drove off in a beautiful Toyota Corolla Cross, which happens to be a nice, they call it the Cross because from sedan to SUV, that's right in the middle. It crosses over from the sedan to the Corolla Cross XLE. A lot of other different makes and models here at Team Toyota. Once again, 215-768-6505. That's my commercial for today for Paul. But it's a great program. But let's get back to our discussion with the victims of sexual predators and how difficult it is because of that screen that they put up. They're professionals. They know just how to build a good relationship with the family, with the people around that are watching, and before you know it, subvertively, they're right where they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you led to an excellent point as far as the insurance policy, because it's not just the grooming to access the child and victimize the child, but it's the added insurance policy that, unlike the child will disclose, because they're kind of twisted upside down and turned around backwards as far as relationships and figuring out who really is good and who's bad.
Yes.
Because this person has been good to me, and maybe he's doing something bad, but it doesn't always feel bad, and and then I'm doing something bad too, but it's the insurance policy that they are unlikely to disclose, and if they do, it's really hard to believe then, because this person has been, in this child's life in so many favorable ways, so it looks less likely that this is a credible allegation. So it's really devious.
It is devious, and they have one motive. These criminals.
They, unlike any other crime, and this is how Megan's Law has survived constitutional muster. It is proven that someone who has this predisposition to victimize children will always have this predisposition. And the only thing that protects us is external measures. So it's not something that with intensive therapy, they're going to suddenly not find prepubescent children attractive sexually. It's that much of a deviant, it's a disease.
Behavior.
It's behavior. And so the external measures that we have to put in place to protect from recidivists.
Right.
So,
boy, that's the word too, because it happens again and again and again.
And generations sometimes.
Yeah.
And
it's
and so the one case I kind of touched upon briefly during the break, I think we were maybe not on the air, but thanks to outstanding police work, I'll reference one particular example because there were 15 victims of this one predator.
Ooh.
The guy I mentioned, who you said you have a striking resemblance to. As far
pay attention. This is a phenomenal story here. It's
15 victims, male and female, as young as 4, as old as 16. There were actual adult victims too, but we charged for the 15 child victims first. And many of the cases were reported to various jurisdictions but didn't really go anywhere initially. They're very hard cases to prove because they happen behind closed doors. I mean, it's not like your armed robbery of your Wawa, which you'd have video surveillance. You would have, other people's Ring doorbells even capturing sometimes crimes.
Sure.
These happen behind closed doors without witnesses typically. So you have to, if the child reports, you then have to look at, can we prove this case?
Of course.
So this is a message to, the community, that we have outstanding law enforcement in Bucks County, which is the theme of every show that we have.
Absolutely.
Because it's why we're here and we're lucky. But it's also the message that, there's a difference. Like you can prove these cases if you think out of the box and you do things creatively. So this case started simply with a 15-year-old girl who came in with her aunt, reluctantly. 15-year-old was not, wanted no parts of this. She had been tattooed in a place kind of in an intimate part of her body by this predator. But that was the nature of the report initially, was tattooing a minor, which is a relatively low-level misdemeanor offense. But the aunt knew that this person was almost victimized the much younger aunt, meaning this aunt was close in age to her 15-year-old niece. She was only about 10 years older. And she knew that this individual, who was friends with the child's mother, had some really strange sexual issues, and she was concerned that there was more based on some things. And initially, the patrol officer who got the call said, well, you should go to this jurisdiction to report this because one tattoo happened here, and you should go to this jurisdiction here to report that because something happened here.
Discouragement.
And it wasn't,
frustration.
It wasn't intentional.
Right.
It's kind of, he's right in that.
Of course.
It was a low-level misdemeanor 3. The tattooing didn't happen in the township where it was reported, Bristol Township. But then the aunt was a lioness. She was frustrated, angry, and kind of gave him the riot act. And he went back to detectives to say, hey, can I just check? Am I right? She's really angry with me, and am I given the right recommendation? So one of the detectives, who happens to be one of the best, Detective Greg Beidler, goes out to talk to the aunt with the intention of calming her down and saying, look, you have to go to this jurisdiction, and you have to go to. And he found her so compelling and so her concerns so valid that he ended up interviewing both the 15-year-old and the aunt, and hours later realized this guy is an actual predator. Comes out that he in fact has had a sexual relationship with this child. That he knew this child when she was a small 4-year-old, or a 3-year-old actually, and would play a game with her that was probably sexual victimization, but the child was too young to know. Comes back into her life when she turns 15 through social media, reaches out to her, and that starts as victimization. And the simple concept of this detective, who's outstanding, saying, well, if he's sexually assaulting this child as a young child at 3-4 years old, and then 10 years later, 11 years later, there's no way he stopped in between.
No.
There has to be more.
Yeah.
And so it just
Absolutely.
took, like you just don't stop. You don't have that disposition and stop. So it took kind of old-fashioned police work. This wasn't anything super, cutting edge. But looking at every jurisdiction he lived in between that decade, 11 years, and call and say, hey, do you happen to have any allegations, any reports on this individual? Turns out 2 other jurisdictions had multiple victims report. One was actively, and another, Chris McMullen, who you've had on this show from Ben Salem, was actively trying to resurrect 4 different child abuse reports in his jurisdiction that kind of died on the vine. And so simultaneously, these 2 powerhouse detectives were investigating the same predator unbeknownst to one another. And perhaps if that phone call never happened, the strength is always in the numbers.
Yes. The aunt didn't come in.
And the aunt didn't come in, and all of these. But even if the aunt came in and the child was willing, and if no one's willing to go the extra mile, it could have died on the vine. But it wasn't. It was, and that's why the determination and just kind of simple. Let me just check and see. Turns out then another jurisdiction had multiple victims too. And I'm not judging the jurisdictions that had reports that nothing happened. They're so hard to prove.
They're difficult. They really are.
But when you have to, just sometimes think out of the box and think of something as simple as, let me just check, because they don't stop. Like a child predator is not going to stop. Anyway, we did some really amazing investigative things while he was still out. But you had to balance the fact that he's out in the community right now as we speak. He still has a tattoo room in his residence. He still has access to kids. We're trying to prove our cases by using some investigative tools that were pretty cool and to help corroborate, because the goal is, a child victim alone in theory is enough to charge, but is it really enough to have a jury convict?
Yes.
Yeah. What's scary about that? It's not as simple as a child couldn't understand and saying he did it.
Right.
It's not that easy.
It is not.
You really, it's really a hard case.
It's
very hard to do.
You're so right. And even if you had the strongest child victim, and you're like, I believe this victim, they're credible, I know they can do this. When they come into that courtroom and have to be in front of the sex offender who violated them,
and the
prosecutor and a judge and 12 well, there's actually more than 12, but 12 are required jurors who are strangers, the stakes are so high.
Right.
And that's sometimes, that child is re-victimized by the process. It's
Absolutely.
not anyone's fault. So if there's a way to corroborate independently.
And the parents are afraid to put the child through that trauma.
Yes.
That's another good point.
It's really, people don't understand all of that.
Yeah.
Like we've been in court so many times, we see it.
You see it, you know.
And it's tough.
Yeah, and to that point, it's a great point that you bring up. One of the things I do want our community to know is when we have a case and we make an arrest, we consider all of that. We really do. We consider, and we work with the parents, we work, decisions are made first and foremost to protect the child from having to be re-victimized if possible.
Right.
But the best way to do that is to have all the cards by doing phenomenal investigative work. And so this partnership of these 2 detectives, Greg Beidler and Chris McMullen, added a third partner, and I know we're almost on a break, one of our county detectives, Tim Perkins, who I work with, because this individual attempted, once he was arrested, a prison escape, and it's a crazy story, but it is proof that the collaboration between people who have one mission, can get the job done.
Oh, absolutely.
When you are determined to do so. So
and with the scientific methods that they have and the hard work investigating.
Yep.
And just everyone working together. That's the best part. In tandem, they're able to put this to rest, at least for this victim, for the victim, and also for this culprit that they need to put behind bars.
There were some unique aspects to the case that few people might think to do, and one of them, I'll be very delicate when I talk about it. One of the older victims knew that there was a tattoo that the defendant had on his own intimate part that, this person would have no way of knowing.
Right.
No way of seeing and no way of knowing. So something as simple as executing a search warrant once he was arrested to document and prove the tattoo existed.
It's there.
So I can assure you there was a couple of not-its,
Oh, yeah, no
initially
doubt,
to
no
have to
doubt.
do that. But I was like, it has to be done, and
Yeah.
that was an exhibit in court.
There you go.
One of the other things that was remarkable was I should be guarded as to what I say, what we did, but I will move on to one aspect. So this predator would use his phone to, access his next victim. He would victimize and then have a victim on deck. And we couldn't get into the iPhone at the time because our technology is always a little bit behind the iPhone's newest, version of, your passcode and whatnot. But we have phenomenal programs that just kind of run the numbers to break into the code. And I kid you not, it was probably about 10 days before the trial, we got into his iPhone, and it just completely shed so much light on, his own words, his own attempts to victimize, his own victimization, where he communicated and bragged about what he did. And so that was a game changer for these victims. So
Technology prevails at times in favor of the prosecution and putting people to rest where they need to be, behind bars.
It sure did.
Don't go anywhere. There's more to follow with Jennifer Schorn, the first assistant district attorney here in Bucks County. Charlie Esposito, myself, Bree. We'll return after a few moments, but don't go anywhere.
Red October is back, and so is our new Toyota inventory, with in-demand popular models arriving monthly, like the all-new Grand Highlander and Sequoia, or reliable classics like the RAV4 and Camry. And with no markups above MSRP in our Teammate Rewards program, you can see for yourself why our home team advantage is so important. Shop online at teamtoyota.net or visit one of our 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton.
Hi, this is Mayor Jeff Martin of Hamilton Township, inviting you to tune in to our monthly radio show, This Month in Hamilton. Video stream live the 4th Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. at WBCB1490.com. We will be featuring various guests from Hamilton Township to keep you up to date on what's going on in Hamilton.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
Thanks for hanging in there, and we are back with First Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Schorn at Bucks County, and Charlie Esposito, myself, Tom Mellon, and Bree at the helm over there, making sure that everything is in check all the time. But let's get right back in. We have about 12 minutes. These shows go by too fast.
They go by
Maybe
quick.
we should do
We
it
can
too.
listen to her all day.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
we
too kind.
can. And for the listeners to have this opportunity, that's why it's so important, why we have these shows, for the value that you provide.
Oh,
thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's get back.
So I mentioned that balancing act of, trying to gather information and put together a case and know that this predator's out there in the community. And one of the things I should mention is, which again, I'm partial, but we do best in Bucks, is our Child Advocacy Center. It's where we do forensic interviews of children who we have concern that may be victims of child abuse. Sometimes they're precautionary, meaning no allegations have been made, but we know that they were around an abuser. And they're not suggestive. That child, if nothing happened, that child will leave that interview not feeling, victimized at all, because if nothing happened, or they, aren't, they're not directly asked about something that, so it's a remarkable tool. But I'll never forget, we are watching, and it's a multidisciplinary team: the detective, the prosecutor, the child protective service worker, and any other social workers, the family advocates are in the room, and we watch the child interview with a trained forensic interviewer who is trained to ask non-leading, non-suggestive questions in a safe environment. And so we're watching this one little girl be interviewed, and every single victim of this man, either parent was dead, one mom had cancer, horrible. She had cancer. Her mother, who was the matriarch of the family, passed Dad
Ouch.
was not in the picture.
Yeah.
All 3 of her 4 children, her oldest 3, her youngest was too young, male and female, were victimized by this guy because he was going to, take the boys on his monster truck, and he was going to help, the daughter, do this fun thing and provide them with money and shelter, so this particular little girl, we knew her dad had died, and he was a murder victim. And all of a sudden, this predator got close to her mom and her, and so we had concerns that she might be a victim. And so we were sitting there watching that interview, and we're hearing about, and she did not disclose being victimized, but we're hearing about her sleeping over in his tattoo room. And we're hearing about, and we knew about, then we hear about another little boy who slept over in his tattoo room through another investigative tool. And the weight of hearing that and knowing he's out there, we looked at one another and we're like, we gotta stop right now.
Torment.
We have to charge. This person is unrelenting in his pursuit of child victims.
Of course.
And if we wait any longer, we're risking another child being victimized. So there was stuff you would have, we wished we could have continued to do without him knowing. But we ultimately, made the decision to, execute a search warrant and arrest warrant on his house, and he was arrested. And tough guy who acts like a tough guy. I did take pleasure in the fact that he had an accident when he was arrested. He urinated, and he was incarcerated, and he would rap and make poems about how he's the victim and the police were targeting him, and it's just like a narcissist to boot. But ultimately, we were able to prove the case, and when we were able to get into that iPhone, it was always scheduled to be a jury trial. We had victims flown in. Some lived out of state because, mind you, were little children, but it was years later that we were able to solve the case, and they were all ready to testify. And then he took what's called a waiver trial, where he stipulated to the evidence because the evidence was so overwhelming that he hoped to preserve certain legal issues like the legality of the search and whatnot on appeal, but knew he couldn't take a trial. But even that took several days, the stipulated waiver trial. And I could not be more proud of each and every, all but one victim, and we respected his desire not to be present. We're present and provided victim impact statements to the court.
Wow, that's great.
You could not. There was not a dry eye in that courtroom.
I'll bet.
Not a dry eye. They were so powerful. The strength they showed. Some of them. And I'm a visual person, and I'm so tempted. I want to be able to show you I'll show you the pictures afterwards of these strong victims who were little kids. And we have pictures of one little girl sitting in front of the Christmas tree and her hair all done and just looking as proud. And the split screen of that's happening, that's capturing Christmas Day, but what's happening behind closed doors for a year.
That long time period, God knows how many children, you'll never know.
Were victimized as well.
You're so right, but
they don't stop. You talked that right in the beginning. They don't stop. They don't stop. They just don't get caught, but they don't stop.
You're right, and not every victim is ready to talk about it. And some never. Yeah, and some never do. So the solidarity, the victims kind of bonded. Several were known to one another, and there was like pods. I called them victims.
Yeah,
there was like 4 different distinct pods, but these 4 pods didn't know one another, so there was no way they all could have gotten together and collaborated. Plus our evidence was overwhelming, but towards the end, to see the support they were showing for one another, and I shouldn't have favorites, but one of the most powerful ones was one of our youngest, and she's a beautiful young woman. At the time we met her, she was 18, but she was the 4-year-old picture in front of the Christmas tree. She is also an amazing artist and poet. And she wrote this poem that was part of her victim impact statement. And to this day, I use it when I present because it explains. And for her victimization was for 5 years, from 4 to 9. 4 to 9. I'm a mother of a 9-year-old.
Yes.
I can't even comprehend that. Her cousin and her sister were also victims. They were a little bit older, but and that he just infiltrated that family and decimated them. And left them with, a legacy of just, trauma. But this young girl, refraining from mentioning her name, even though I want to, she's remarkable, brilliant, artistic, but her, struggles are real.
Oh, so. Yeah, I'm certain.
Some of these children blame themselves. They feel guilty themselves. And
they feel the guilt like they did something wrong.
They did something
or allowed something to happen.
Yep.
Because the predators, excuse the word, but smart enough to influence that into them.
You're so right. From the beginning, that's part of the grooming. You're so right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because really they feel guilty, or they feel as if they do report it, they're going to find out that I did something wrong.
Exactly.
Something wrong.
That's
You're never doing anything wrong. The best thing to do is report it.
And I guess if there's a message to the community to remind your kids, to talk with them, no matter what you think, mom and dad may get upset about something, we won't. Tell us. You have to. Similarly, like I do now with my older child, about if you're at a party and someone's, if they're and you're drinking, or you need to call us, and not that we're saying you should be underage drinking, but you're not going to be in trouble if you're asking for a ride, or if someone else will come and get you. Similarly to children, you're so right. They think what they're doing is wrong. That's part of the brainwashing that this predator does.
To come forward, a lot of them.
Yeah, and just think about it, like, we don't talk potty talk, we don't talk bathroom talk. Those are lessons they're told ever since they're little. And that's not appropriate to talk about if they say something funny at school, potty talk. Right. So they think they are partaking in, and the sex offender lets them think that they're willingly participating in this. So we're in this together. Yeah. So this is both bad. And
it's our secret.
It's our secret. And that's why, and you also, and this is the heart-wrenching in families, I'm doing this to you, but I won't do this to your sister if you let me continue to do this to you.
Oh, geez.
Meanwhile,
agreements.
he's doing it to the sister.
And telling the sister the same thing.
Yeah, we see that all the time. And the brother.
Wow.
So to see these, the two men that came to court, one was just so powerful, his statement, and he's like, I don't call me a victim, though. I'm not a victim. I'll be there for my little brother, but I can't be identified as a victim. But he was a victim. But he was like, I graduated high school. This is the one family whose mom had cancer and the grandmother passed away. Father, he's like, I am making something. I'm working. I have my high school degree. I am, providing for myself. I can't go backwards. And it was heart-wrenching to see this good-looking man say that.
Yeah.
But he was a boy. He was 12. His sister, he was 11. His sister was 10. And his little brother was 5.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Horrible.
And it just permeates through every community. Mm-hmm. It's everywhere. It's outward signs that you want to look for. Yeah. If someone takes an interest in your child, or it could be your nephew, your niece, whoever it is, if you see someone taking an interest, and also the education that you have to provide, my grandchildren,
absolutely.
I tell them all the time, people shouldn't be touching you. And they look at me and they don't understand.
Yep.
But I explain there's reasons. We'll talk to you later about it when you get older. But don't let nobody should be touching you, especially in certain little areas that's just for yourself. It's very private. And you have to share that. I mean, you have to let them know. And if there is anything someone that comes to you or you have any type of an experience like that, you have to let us know. That's
a great point, Tom, that you're mentioning. Oftentimes, kids will tell other kids. Yes. So your child might not be the victim, but they may be the friend that the victim confides in.
Yes.
So if you're setting that, that relationship, if you early on, you can tell me anything. You can tell, even if you're. So we see that more often than not. And so to be the kind of upstander, like I know it's a corny phrase, but to be, you can trust their.
Tell me anything.
Tell me anything, and I will not be upset so long as you're being honest with me.
Right.
Yep.
Another great show.
Yeah.
I mean, this hour just comes.
It goes so fast.
So quick, doesn't it?
It goes so fast.
But we'll have more to discuss with Jennifer, because she has a plethora of good talk that's instrumental in helping you our listeners, whether you're a grandparent, great-grandparent, fathers, brothers, sister, whoever you may be, so that you can permeate this. It transcends, and it can be helpful for your children and your grandchildren.
My mind's going a mile a minute. I have like a million questions.
I know. I know. And we'll have more with Jennifer.
You say one thing and it brings a question up for something else.
Right?
Sure does.
Very nice having you on the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's phenomenal.
I enjoyed it
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
So, Jen, we'll have more to talk about. Maybe we'll even finish with. I know you have one more case to talk about, and there's many aspects with prosecutorial as far as investigative that Jennifer is going to share with us and you, our listeners. Thanks for joining us today. On behalf of Paul Muller here at Team Toyota, I'm Tom Mellon, Charlie Esposito, Jennifer Schorn, the Bucks County District Attorney. Thank you. We want to, as I say at the end of all my shows, be safe, stay well. Jer, I'm coming home to walk the dog, as I always say. If I'm ever not here, you're going to have to come walk the dog.
I know.
Matt Weintraub said that one time.
He said he'll
Matt said, well, Tom's not here. We were at dinner or something, and I wasn't there. And Matt said, listen, Jer, I'll walk the dog with you. Tom's not here.
That's great.
But most importantly, don't text while you drive as well. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon, and God bless America.